Welcome to a story that will make you rethink the people you meet every day, the quiet ones living silently among us. Sometimes the most terrifying shadows hide in the most ordinary corners. If you enjoy dark tales dripping with unease, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our stories. And now, let's dive into the horror known as the Custodian's Canvas. The Olympus Tower, a gleaming monolith of glass and steel, pierced the New York skyline like a triumphant spear. By day, it hummed with the ambition of corporate titans, the whispers of lucrative deals, and the clatter of keyboards composing the city's financial symphony. By night, however, after the last executive had departed and the last intern had slunk home, the tower transformed. It became the domain of shadows, the kingdom of the unseen, and for Walter Pinter, the custodian, his personal sanctuary. Walter was a man built for invisibility. His frame was slender, almost wispy, his movements economical, quiet as a mouse padding across a plush carpet. His eyes, though, were sharp, a startling cold blue that seemed to absorb more than they reflected. For 15 years, Walter had navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the Olympus Tower, pushing his cart laden with bleach, polish, and the silent tools of his trade. He knew every loose floorboard, every flickering fluorescent bulb, every executive's late-night habit, and every secret stain. He was the ghost in the machine, the phantom limb of the building, and no one ever truly saw him. And that, precisely, was the genesis of his masterpiece. The idea had simmered in the murky depths of his mind for years, a dark, satisfying fantasy that gradually calcified into a concrete plan. Walter, the invisible man, yearned to be seen, not in the fleeting, dismissive glance of an executive hurrying past, nor in the perfunctory nod of a security guard. He wanted to be seen in a way that resonated, that echoed, that ripped through the complacent fabric of American society and left an indelible scar. He wanted to cause a sensation, a tremor that would shake the nation, forcing them to acknowledge the unacknowledged. His first stroke, he decided, would be Mr. Julian Harrington. Harrington was a senior partner at Sterling & Finch, an investment firm occupying the 42nd floor. He was a man who exuded privilege, from his custom-tailored suits to the dismissive wave of his hand when Walter accidentally brushed his cart against Harrington's polished shoe. Harrington epitomized everything Walter resented: the casual arrogance, the unearned confidence, the absolute certainty of his own importance. He was a symbol, a perfect opening note. Walter meticulously prepared. He spent weeks observing Harrington's routine. The late nights, fueled by stale coffee and the pursuit of abstract numbers. The unlocked office door, often left ajar while Harrington took a quick, solitary bathroom break down the hall. The specific brand of expensive Scotch Harrington kept in his desk drawer. These details, insignificant to anyone else, were pieces of a puzzle to Walter, fitting neatly into the grim mosaic he was constructing. He began by modifying his tools. The sturdy metal handle of his mop, usually a benign instrument of cleanliness, became a potential bludgeon. He discreetly acquired specific cleaning agents not just for their efficacy on grime, but for their specific, lingering odors that could mask others, or their lack of telltale residue. He practiced moving through the darkened building without a sound, his rubber-soled shoes a part of the quiet night. He learned the exact timing of the security patrols, the blind spots of the surveillance cameras, and the precise moment when the city's hum was at its lowest ebb, just before dawn. The chosen night was a Tuesday, a traditionally quiet night in the tower. A light drizzle slicked the city streets, ensuring fewer people out and about. Walter clocked in at his usual 9 p.m., exchanging a grunt with Frank, the night security guard, a man whose primary interest was the baseball game on his tablet. Walter made his rounds, pushing his cart with practiced ease, his movements fluid and unassuming. He cleaned the ground floor, then the lobby, all the while his heart a steady drumbeat of anticipation. Tonight, the canvas would receive its first splash of color. He took the service elevator to the 42nd floor just after midnight. The floor was quiet, most offices dark. Harrington's office, however, glowed with a soft, persistent light. Walter paused, listening. The faint click of a keyboard, the rustle of papers, the occasional sigh. Harrington was still there, diligently chasing his millions. Walter waited, patiently, like a predator at a watering hole. He cleaned the adjacent offices, methodically, deliberately. He noted Harrington's brief absence, the sound of the bathroom door closing down the hall. That was his cue. He slipped into Harrington's office, a silent shadow. The office was a testament to corporate success. Dark wood, leather, a panoramic view of the sparkling city. Walter moved directly to Harrington's desk. He didn't touch anything, not yet. He observed, absorbing the essence of the man who would soon be his first statement. Harrington returned a few minutes later, humming a tuneless melody, his mind clearly still on his spreadsheets. He paused at the doorway, his eyes darting to the figure standing by his desk. The humming stopped. "Walter!" Harrington's voice was tinged with surprise, then a familiar irritation. "What are you doing in here? I thought you usually do this floor later." Walter turned, his face unreadable in the soft office light. "Just getting a head start, Mr. Harrington. Thought I'd take care of your office while you were away." His voice was low, devoid of its usual subservient tone. Harrington frowned, a slight crease forming between his brows. "Well, I'm still working. I'd appreciate it if you came back later." He gestured vaguely towards the door. Walter took a step closer, then another. "You know, Mr. Harrington," he began, his voice still quiet, "I've been cleaning this tower for 15 years. I've seen a lot, heard a lot, and I've been invisible for all of it." Harrington's expression shifted from irritation to mild discomfort. He sensed a strange undercurrent in Walter's words, a subtle shift in the power dynamic. "Look, Walter, I appreciate your work, but I'm busy. We can talk about this another time." He reached for his phone, a subconscious gesture of defense. "No," Walter said, his voice hardening. "We talk now." He moved with a sudden, shocking speed. The mop handle, gripped firmly in his hands, swung in a swift, brutal arc. It connected with Harrington's temple with a sickening thud. Harrington gasped, his eyes wide with disbelief, then crumpled to the floor, a dark, spreading stain blooming on the pristine carpet. Walter felt no surge of triumph, no adrenaline rush, only a calm, surgical precision. He had anticipated this moment, rehearsed it countless times in his mind. He knelt beside Harrington, checking for a pulse. Faint, erratic. He reached into his cart, pulling out a small, sharp object he'd fashioned from a sharpened screwdriver, wiping it clean with an alcohol wipe. A quick, precise movement, and Harrington's breath hitched, then ceased. The silence in the office became absolute, broken only by the distant hum of the city. Now the artistry began. Walter cleaned. He wiped down every surface Harrington might have touched, every spot where his own fingerprints might have inadvertently landed. He used a specialized cleaning solution that not only removed blood, but also broke down its chemical signature, making it harder to detect. He painstakingly cleaned the mop handle, the screwdriver, everything. He rearranged the office subtly, making it seem as though Harrington had merely tidied up before leaving. He made sure to leave no obvious trace, no DNA, no fibers that didn't belong. He even replaced the bottle of scotch, now just slightly less full than it had been. He removed the expensive pen Harrington had been using, and discreetly placed a generic, office-issued pen on the desk, a small, almost imperceptible detail that hinted at a subtle disarray, but nothing more. Before he left, he looked down at Harrington's still form. "You won't be invisible anymore, Mr. Harrington," Walter whispered, his voice as cold as the polished steel of the tower. "And neither will I." He pushed his cart back to the service elevator, descended to the ground floor, and clocked out. He exchanged another grunt with Frank, who was now dozing lightly. Walter walked out into the pre-dawn gloom, the rain still falling, washing the city clean. He was just a janitor, going home after a long night's work. The next morning, the scream of Ms. Eleanor Vance, Harrington's assistant, ripped through the usual calm of the 42nd floor. The police arrived, Then the forensics team. The Olympus Tower, usually a beacon of order, was suddenly a hive of chaotic energy. Detectives milled about, technicians dusted for prints, and the hushed whispers of murder spread like wildfire. Initial reports were confused. No forced entry. No signs of struggle. The office was eerily clean, almost sterile. Harrington's expensive watch and wallet were still on his person. It wasn't a robbery. The cause of death was precise, almost surgical. A professional hit, the initial theories claimed, or someone with a very particular agenda. The city buzzed with the news. A high-profile executive, murdered in his own office. Who would do such a thing? And why? Walter Pinter sat at home, watching the news unfold. He felt a quiet satisfaction. The first brushstroke was complete. The canvas of America was stirring, just as he intended. They didn't see him yet, but they would. Oh, they would. And when they finally did, they would realize the true horror of what an invisible man could achieve. The murder of Julian Harrington sent ripples of unease throughout the corporate world, a chilling reminder that even the most secure environments were vulnerable. For a week, news channels dissected every angle. The lack of motive, the meticulous cleanup, the seemingly impossible entry. Security was tightened at the Olympus Tower, ID checks becoming more rigorous, surveillance footage scrutinized with unprecedented intensity. Yet the killer remained a phantom. The Olympus Phantom, as the tabloids quickly dubbed him, became a terrifying urban legend in the making. Detective Isabella Harding, a sharp, tenacious investigator with the NYPD's homicide unit, found herself spearheading the case. Her desk was buried under reports, forensic analyses, and witness statements, none of which seemed to coalesce into a coherent picture. The security footage, combed over endlessly, showed nothing amiss. No suspicious figures entering or leaving, no masked intruders. It was as if Harrington had simply ceased to be. It's like he was killed by a ghost, Captain, Harding muttered to her superior one late night, gesturing at the pile of inconclusive evidence. No forced entry, no struggle, no prints, no DNA. Just a dead man and an impossibly clean crime scene. Ghosts don't commit murder. Harding? Captain Davies grumbled, rubbing his temples. Someone got in. Someone got out. And they were damn good at it. Or they were already in. That last thought resonated with Harding. Already in. But who? A disgruntled employee? A rival executive? They'd vetted everyone and no one fit the profile. While Detective Harding wrestled with the enigma, Walter Pinter watched with detached amusement. The chaos, the fear, the frantic search for a ghost, it was all part of his unfolding narrative. He reveled in the invisible panic, the way people now looked over their shoulders, the way the guards scrutinized him a little longer, their eyes passing through him, never at him. He felt a surge of power, a validation of his own hidden existence. The city was finally paying attention, even if they didn't know who they were paying attention to. Harrington, he decided, was just the prelude. Now it was time to paint with bolder strokes. He needed to escalate, to broaden his impact, to ensure that the tremors he caused reverberated across the entire nation, not just in New York. His next targets were carefully selected, not for personal grievances, but for their symbolic value. He wanted to demonstrate the fragility of the powerful, the vulnerability of the celebrated. He wanted to shatter the illusion of safety that money and influence provided. 2 weeks after Harrington's death, the city woke up to another horrifying headline. Evelyn Reed, a renowned tech CEO and a prominent feminist icon, was found dead in her penthouse apartment, located in a high-rise residential building across town. The circumstances were eerily similar. No forced entry, no signs of struggle, and an impossibly sterile crime scene. Her security system, state-of-the-art, had been completely bypassed. The cause of death, once again, was precise and clinical. The public outcry was immediate and immense. Evelyn Reed was a household name, a trailblazer. Her murder, coming so soon after Harrington's, sparked widespread panic. Was it a serial killer? Was it connected? The police were stumped. The Olympus Phantom had seemingly transcended his initial hunting ground. Detective Harding felt a chill run down her spine. The similarities were too striking to be a coincidence. But how? How could a killer, seemingly tied to the Olympus Tower, seamlessly transition to an entirely different, highly secured building? It defied logic. She started looking for the invisible connection. What did a corporate executive and a tech CEO have in common, beyond their prominence? Access, control, public face, and perhaps a shared blind spot. Walter, meanwhile, was meticulously planning his next move, enjoying the escalating fear like a connoisseur savors a fine wine. He had used his janitorial contacts, cultivated over years of quiet camaraderie with other cleaners across the city, to gain information about Reed's building. He had subtly infiltrated her building's cleaning crew for a few days, a temporary replacement, just long enough to learn its layout, its security nuances, its rhythms. He'd observed her routine, her late-night work habits, her solitary moments. His janitorial uniform, a universal badge of invisibility, had been his perfect camouflage. He watched the news reports, the talking heads speculating wildly. He saw the fear in the eyes of the anchors, the grim determination on Detective Harding's face. He could almost feel the vibrations of national anxiety. This was it. This was the impact he craved. The mundane, the invisible, was ripping apart the fabric of their secure world. His third victim was a flamboyant celebrity chef, Marco Rossi, whose restaurant, the Gilded Spoon, occupied a coveted space in a trendy downtown hotel. Rossi was found in the hotel's expansive, gleaming kitchen, amidst the polished steel and gleaming copper. Again, the same chilling signature. No forced entry, no struggle, a sterile environment. Rossi's body, sprawled among his gourmet ingredients, was a grotesque tableau. This time, the media frenzy reached a fever pitch. 3 prominent figures, murdered with the same uncanny precision, across different high-security locations. America was gripped by terror. People started questioning their security systems, their safe spaces, even their neighbors. The Olympus Phantom was no longer just a New York problem. He was a national crisis. Presidential press conferences addressed the burgeoning panic. The FBI was called in, collaborating with the NYPD, a task force assembled to catch the elusive killer. They dubbed him the Ghost Killer in official reports, a nod to his ability to vanish without a trace. Profilers spoke of a highly intelligent, meticulous individual, possibly suffering from a severe narcissistic personality disorder, who sought recognition through extreme acts. They theorized he derived pleasure from the public's terror and the authorities' helplessness. Harding, working closely with FBI Special Agent Maxwell Thorne, a seasoned profiler with a knack for the psychological underpinnings of crime, started to develop a disturbing hypothesis. Agent Thorne, she began, staring at a map dotted with the 3 crime scenes. What if the common denominator isn't who these people are, but how they were accessed? Or rather, who always has access everywhere? Thorne raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Go on, detective. Harrington was in a corporate building. Reed in a high-end residential tower. Rossi in a luxury hotel. 3 completely different types of secure environments. But what kind of person, what kind of role, would grant seemingly unrestricted access to all these places, often at odd hours without arousing suspicion? Thorne's eyes narrowed. Someone who belongs. Someone who's expected. A uniform. Harding nodded slowly, her finger tracing a path between the crime scenes. Cleaners, janitors, maintenance staff. They're everywhere in every building. They know the layouts, the back entrances, the schedules. They're invisible. No one looks twice at a janitor pushing a cart. The profiler's face, usually impassive, showed a flicker of dawning horror. The invisible man trope, he murmured. It fits the psychological profile. Someone who feels overlooked, resentful, seeking ultimate recognition by becoming the most terrifying presence. He's turning his invisibility into his greatest weapon. They began a painstaking reevaluation of all personnel records from the 3 buildings, focusing on the cleaning and maintenance staff. It was a monumental task, thousands of names. But for the first time, they had a direction. They started to look at the invisible, rather than through them. Walter Pinter, oblivious to the subtle shift in the investigation, was already planning his grand finale. The 3 killings had achieved national notoriety. But he wanted more. He wanted a final, definitive statement that would burn his name, or rather, his concept, into the American consciousness forever. He envisioned a dramatic, multi-victim event that would not only shock but also leave a lasting, philosophical question about the nature of visibility and power in society. He had chosen his next location, the American Museum of Natural History, a bastion of culture and learning, a place where history was preserved and celebrated, a place where, ironically, thousands of the unseen toiled daily, cleaning and maintaining its vast halls. He planned to strike during a high-profile gala, a convergence of the city's elite under the guise of an emergency cleaning crew. This, he thought, would be the crowning achievement of the custodian's canvas, the ultimate act of the invisible man, etching his presence into the very fabric of the nation, a terrifying artist painting with blood and fear. The city was a tinderbox, fear sparking at every shadow. The ghost killer, as he was now universally known, had not struck again for nearly a month, a period of agonizing suspense that only heightened the public's anxiety. Detective Harding and Agent Thorne, however, saw this lull not as a cessation, but as a period of calculated preparation. Their theory about the invisible man had gained traction within the task force. They were sifting through thousands of backgrounds, scrutinizing every janitor, every cleaner, every maintenance worker who had access to all 3 previous crime scenes, or who could have plausibly gained temporary access. The sheer volume of data was overwhelming, but Thorne's psychological profile was their guiding light. The killer was intelligent, meticulous, and driven by a profound sense of injustice and a yearning for recognition. He would choose targets not for personal gain but for symbolic impact. His crimes were carefully orchestrated performances. One name began to surface with disturbing regularity: Walter Pinter. A long-term custodian at the Olympus Tower, he had a clean record, no known grievances, no obvious red flags. He was, in essence, perfectly unremarkable. And that, Thorne realized, was precisely why he was remarkable. "He's the ultimate gray man," Thorne explained to Harding, pointing at Walter's file. 15 years at the same job, no promotions, no disciplinary actions, no significant personal relationships recorded. A ghost. He fits the profile almost too perfectly. They delved deeper into Walter's life. His apartment was Spartan, meticulously clean, almost clinical. His digital footprint was negligible. He lived a life of deliberate, almost pathological anonymity. A true blank slate, a perfect canvas for a monstrous identity. Then came the lead that solidified their suspicions. A new, sophisticated forensic analysis of microscopic fibers found at the Olympus Tower crime scene, previously dismissed as ubiquitous cleaning residues, revealed a minute trace of a specific, rare industrial cleaning agent. It was a product typically used only in the most high-traffic public spaces, like museums or large event venues, known for its superior stain removal on historical surfaces. It was not commonly used in a corporate office, and certainly not in a residential penthouse or a hotel kitchen. However, a small, independent cleaning supplier in Queens, which serviced specialized contracts for such venues, had records of Walter Pinter purchasing it once a month before Harrington's murder, and again 2 weeks before Reed's. "He's practicing," Harding breathed, her eyes widening. "He's refining his methods, testing new chemicals, new ways to erase his presence. And that specific product. Where would he use something like that?" Thorne's phone buzzed. It was an anonymous tip, forwarded from the FBI's counterterrorism unit. A frantic, garbled message about a man in gray planning a grand display at the American Museum of Natural History during its annual Gala of Lights, a star-studded event scheduled for the upcoming Saturday night. The tipster, an estranged relative of Walter Pinter who had grown increasingly concerned by his cousin's dark, abstract pronouncements about shaking the world awake, had finally found the courage to speak up after seeing Harding's profile of the killer on the news. "The Museum of Natural History," Thorne repeated, his voice grim. "The perfect stage for a grand display." and it fits the profile for that specific cleaning agent. They had their target, and they had their killer. The Gala of Lights was a spectacle of opulence. Limousines lined Central Park West, disgorging celebrities, philanthropists, and political figures onto the museum's grand steps. Inside, the Hall of Biodiversity glittered, transformed into an elegant ballroom, alive with the murmur of conversation, the clink of champagne glasses, and the strains of a live orchestra. Walter Pinter was there, a ghost in the machine once more. He had secured a temporary position with a contracted cleaning crew hired for the gala, his uniform blending seamlessly with dozens of others. He moved among the glittering throng, pushing his cart, his eyes taking in the faces of the powerful, the privileged, the seen. A faint, chilling smile played on his lips. This would be his magnum opus. His plan was audacious, designed not just for murder, but for maximum psychological impact. He had strategically placed small, nearly invisible devices throughout the museum's ventilation system, rigged to release a potent, fast-acting sedative gas into the Hall of Biodiversity at a specific time. Once the elite were incapacitated, he would enter, and with surgical precision, select his final, most symbolic victims, turning their bodies into a macabre installation, a lasting testament to the forgotten. He would then melt away, leaving behind a scene of unparalleled horror and a message etched forever into the public consciousness. The invisible can touch you, even when you believe you are untouchable. Harding and Thorne, leading a covert team of NYPD and FBI agents, moved through the museum in plain clothes, their hearts pounding. They knew Walter's face, his posture, his unassuming demeanor. They were looking for the absence of presence. There, Harding whispered, pointing subtly. Walter, pushing his cart, was making his way towards the main ventilation shaft access panel, located discreetly behind a display of ancient fossils. His movements were too deliberate, too focused for a mere cleaner. As Walter reached the panel, his hand reaching for the access key, Thorne gave the signal. In an instant, agents converged. Walter Pinter, NYPD. Don't move. Harding's voice cut through the genteel chatter of the gala, causing heads to turn, whispers to erupt. Walter froze, his hand inches from the panel. He turned slowly, his eyes meeting Harding's. There was no fear in them, only a strange, serene understanding. He had been caught, yes, but not defeated. His message, he believed, had already been delivered. "It's over, Walter," Harding said, her voice firm, but with a hint of something else, a strange weariness. Walter simply smiled, a chillingly calm, almost triumphant expression. "Is it, detective? Or has it just begun?" He looked around at the bewildered faces of the gala guests, then back at Harding. They saw nothing, did they? For years they saw nothing. Now they will never unsee. He was apprehended without a struggle. The sedative devices were neutralized moments before activation. The museum was evacuated, chaos erupting as news of the foiled attack spread. The ghost killer, the Olympus Phantom, the invisible man, he finally had a face, a name. The trial of Walter Pinter became a national obsession. His defense argued insanity, but Walter himself, in his own calm, articulate testimony, refuted it. He was not insane, he claimed. He was merely an artist, using the only medium available to him to communicate a profound truth. He spoke of the invisible people of America, the forgotten, the overlooked, the essential cogs in the machine who were never acknowledged. His murders, he insisted, were not about hatred, but about exposure, about forcing a society addicted to celebrity and power to confront its own blind spots. He was convicted on all counts, sentenced to multiple life terms without parole. But his story, his chilling motive, had already become etched into the American psyche. News channels debated his philosophy. Sociologists examined the phenomenon of the invisible worker. Security protocols were drastically overhauled across the nation, not just for external threats, but for the quiet, internal ones. In the aftermath, a strange, unsettling phenomenon occurred. People looked differently at the janitor cleaning the office, the bus driver on their route, the barista making their coffee. A flicker of recognition, a moment of uncomfortable awareness. The fear had subsided, replaced by a lingering unease, a knowledge that the most dangerous threats could walk among them in plain sight, their invisibility a cloak for their deepest, darkest intentions. Walter Pinter, from his maximum security cell, received letters from across the country. Some were filled with hate, others with a chilling understanding, even a perverse kind of admiration. He read them all, a faint, satisfied smile on his lips. He was no longer invisible. His canvas, painted with blood and fear, had become a permanent fixture in the American consciousness. And that, he knew, was precisely the legacy he had always yearned for. The echo of the unseen would forever haunt the halls of the seen.